R stands for resolution, and the primary motivator for the R is to get things done. Resolution is the first real part of getting things done. And a really important thing to understand with the R is that when things are unresolved, it creates emotional distress for the R. They don't like how it feels to have things hanging over their head or to have things unresolved. And so they're driven to resolve things, because when something's resolved, it resolves that emotional disquiet that they were feeling with the lost keys, or the homework assignment that was not turned in or that was lost. Those things that are undone create emotional turmoil, and by resolving them, the R is able to resolve that angst. R's tend to be list makers. They like to have an easy way to see what's going on. Frequently, they'll use something just simple, 3x5 cards or sticky notes, writing things on calendars. R's like to have several things moving forward at once, because again, if you can have one thing moving forward, it's how much better is it to have 5 things moving forward? And so R's will work on something until they can't move it forward anymore, and then they'll move on to the next thing and move it forward, and then they'll come back and move this. So they like to have several things moving forward at once. R's can be impatient, because as soon as something comes to the attention of an R, they want it resolved. And so it can frequently feel like things are taking too long. Even a conversation or a drive or something, it can feel like things are taking too long to get done. Action. R's are excellent at creating action. R's possess an intense, dynamite-style energy that is really good for propulsion and creating movement. It's important for R's to act quickly, because the intensity with which they confront something requires a lot of energy. And so R's energy tends to be quick and intense, and then to burn out pretty quickly. And so it's important to kind of strike while the iron's hot for the R. R's get frustrated when they get stuck. If they don't feel like they can move something forward, it's really frustrating, and R's will quickly move on to something else if they feel stuck. Because of that, they like control. The R likes to feel like there's nothing outside of their control that's impeding their ability to create movement and get things done. They have a very low tolerance for hassle. R's are not very detail oriented. They want to get things done, and so every corner might not be square if an R is doing something, or everything might not be perfect, because perfection isn't what drives the R. What drives the R is getting it done. So if you want something done, get an R on it. If you don't want movement immediately, then don't bring it to the attention to an R, because they're going to start moving on it as soon as it is in their attention. R's comes to their attention. R's are the only temperament that live in the future. R's are always thinking about what's coming next and looking to the future. Because of that, they get over things very quickly. One of the biggest strengths, in my opinion, of the R is that they get over things very quickly. They don't stay mad. It's too much hassle, and it's not where they live, and so they're quick to move on. R's like to have a simple plan about things. They're not complicated planners. Typically, they won't use a real complicated system or app normally. But they just want a simple way to be able to keep track of things that they're working on, and they want to move forward. Sometimes it can feel like you get run over by an R. Because R's are focused on the future, they're really good at blowing through obstacles that stand between them and where they're trying to get, or what they're trying to get accomplished. But if you happen to be in between them and where they're going, a lot of times it can feel like they run over you. And it's not because they're being inconsiderate. They're focused on where they're going, and may not even notice you. Emotionally, R's are very reactive. They are quick and powerful emoters. So R's are pretty comfortable with intensity, and pretty comfortable with emotions and expressing emotions. Frequently, R's act. One of the great strengths of the R is that what comes into their mind typically makes its way out of their mouth. And so what you see is what you get with an R. While they feel things very intensely, and they're quick and powerful emoters, they're not typically complicated emoters, and what you see is largely unfiltered. You don't have to guess a lot about what's going on in the R. R's have a very single focused intensity. They focus on something with 110%, trying to get that resolved, and then they move on to the next thing with 110%. R's have a high tolerance for emotion. They're quick on their feet. They're typically very good in an argument or in kind of spur of the moment thing, because their brains are quick, and they're not complicated, and they're about moving. So they're typically comfortable with intensity and intense emotion. R's typically meet resistance with equal or greater resistance. When an R comes in contact with something that is in their way, which can be a discussion, it can be a conflict, it can be a different point of view, the default for the R is to meet resistance or obstruction with equal or greater resistance or intensity. So that's the default for the R. Also, they tend to jump to conclusions. As soon as something enters the R brain, they're already thinking about where they're going and what's going on with it. And so it can frequently feel like an R is moving on or moving into action before you're ready. Like, what if we could do that? We could remodel the kitchen. An R might go out to the garage and grab a sledgehammer and start tearing out the cabinets before you're even you've wrapped your brain completely around it. So that's a brief description of the R. Really, we benefit a lot from the movement that R's bring to our society.